It is the agenda for the 21st century you're living in today. For a brave new world where everything that you cherished and held true will no longer exist.
At least 50 people are dead after an earthquake in northern Indonesia's Aceh province early Wednesday morning. The powerful 6.4 magnitude earthquake brought down buildings and forced people out of their homes. Search and rescue teams are working to find the dozens of people still missing. We estimate the number of casualties will continue to rise as some people are still under the rubble, a spokesperson for the National Disaster Management Agency said. Volunteer teams brought the injured to local hospitals, filling most to capacity. The quake struck just after 5 a.m. local time in Aceh's Pide Jaya. That area is about 170 kilometers from Banda Aceh, where in 2004, some 120,000 people were killed in a massive earthquake and tsunami. No tsunami warning was issued for Wednesday's quake, although there were several aftershocks.
Overseas now, where a powerful earthquake in Indonesia has left nearly 100 people dead.
This is Billy Coleswell, and she's lived here on Walden's Ridge for about 26 years now, and she says it's been about a month that she's had no water.
You have no idea how bad this is.
Billy Cole is just trying to survive.
You really don't understand what other people are going through until it does come to your doorstep.
Her well is dry, and the lack of rain is to blame.
Drought led to wildfires and water restrictions across the area. Now rest areas in Grundy County are closed to travelers because of the dry conditions as well.
This is Itsy Bitsy born premature here, and the owners of the farm here say because of the drought, it made the start to her life a little rough.
As a result of the local, state, and federal agencies working together, we are pleased to announce that 2 people have now been charged for their role in starting the fires. Unfortunately, these 2 individuals are juveniles. I can tell you that this investigation is active and ongoing, and we still have a lot of work to do.
14 people have been killed and 1 remains missing following severe flooding in southern Thailand. The Interior Ministry said in a statement that over 500,000 people have been affected by 6 days of floods. And the Meteorological Department forecasts heavy rain to come within the next 7 days for southern regions. The south is a popular destination for tourists due to its scenic islands and beaches, and floods are expected to have an impact on what is generally the area's most profitable tourism season, which runs from November to February.
2016 will go down as the hottest year on record, and the North and South poles can't handle the heat. Climate scientists say polar sea ice the size of India has disappeared. That's about as big as 2 Alaskas. Now the amount of sea ice at the poles is at a record low for the season.
Well, if you're thinking about buying beachfront property anytime soon, you may want to think twice, because sea levels are going to start to rise for 2 reasons. First of all, the Earth is heating up, as you said, and water expands when it gets warmer. That causes sea level rise. But second of all, and this new study is quite damaging, the size of the North and polar cap regions are shrinking to the tune of twice the size of Alaska. And that water has to go someplace, and it's going to wind up in somebody's living room in the future. In fact, it's projected that in the coming decades, sea levels could rise maybe 3 feet, perhaps maybe even 10 feet by the end of this century. Where we are standing right now could be underwater.
In less than half a century.
That's right. Again, these numbers depend upon which computer studies you use, which assumptions you make. But most of the studies are converging on the fact that A, the Earth is heating up, B, the ice caps are beginning to melt and crack, even the South Pole is beginning to crack, and 3, that means that water's got to go someplace, and it could wind up in someone's living room.
Right now, it is 5 degrees. There's no number in front of that or behind that. It's 5 degrees. The wind chill is about -1, and these wind gusts that you're seeing right now, it's only going to get worse. Yesterday, we were in front of some wind gusts that were over 40 miles an hour, and that was dropping temperatures to -14. What we're seeing around the state is a lot of this. Snow pack on the ground and snow drift. This is just a 3-foot snow drift. Decent size. We've seen some that are about 7 feet.
The global polar bear population could decline by more than 30% in as little as 35 years. That's according to a new study in the Royal Society's Biology Letters. Researchers looked at climate change's effect on the Arctic Sea and calculated the likelihood of this projected population drop is 71%. That's because polar bears stand on Arctic sea ice when hunting for seals. According to NASA, even the thickest ice in the Arctic Ocean has either thinned or melted away. And just this week, scientists reported sea ice levels in the area were at a record low for this time of year. This all adds up to not great news for the polar bears. With an estimated population of 26,000, the bears are already listed as a vulnerable species by
The toll on the nation's sprawling forest is readily apparent, though the culprit is not always visible. Invasive insects like the southern pine beetle and the emerald ash borer are attacking trees from the northeast to California to Florida. One study found almost 2/3 of U.S. woodlands will be at risk by 2027, causing a multi-billion-dollar problem.
This should be a dark green canopy, and this should be very shaded underneath. And so the fact we can see so much gray and brown from the twigs, it's striking.
In Massachusetts, hemlock trees are being killed by the hemlock woolly adelgid, a sap-sucking bug no bigger than a speck of pepper. Increased global trade means more bugs and blights are getting into the country on plants or packaging material. Droughts leave trees weaker.
Many of these pests can build up very large numbers on individual trees within a few years' time, and so the tree can't really fight that off through any natural resistance, and we just don't have any effective native predators.
Scientists are scrambling for solutions. In Syracuse, New York, William Powell leads a team growing trees to fend off chestnut blight. The fungus has killed billions of American chestnut trees in the last century. Many of these trees have been genetically tweaked with a gene found in wheat.
What we're doing with transgenics is we take the original American chestnut tree and only add a couple genes. And therefore nothing else has changed. The only thing we're adding is genes to make it blight resistant.
Powell believes similar genetic modifications can fight other killer pests.
The general principles of genetic engineering can be applied to emerald ash borer, to hemlock woolly adelgid, to thousand canker disease of walnut, sudden oak death.
Other solutions being explored include crossbreeding vulnerable breeds and planting trees far from their normal ranges to escape pests. Still others propose restricting imports of live trees and shrubs. But there are no quick fixes. Breeding takes decades, and genetically engineered trees need federal approval. Success measured not in years, but in generations.
By this time next year, Google hopes to be 100% green. The internet giant says it plans to pay for enough renewable energy to power all of its data centers and offices around the globe by 2017. Google calls itself the largest corporate buyer of green energy in the world. The company is currently buying up to 2.6 gigawatts, or just over 2 DeLoreans of renewable power. The facilities will still be hooked up to the regular power grid, so there's no way for Google to guarantee the power they're running on comes from renewable sources. But the company says it will purchase enough renewable energy credits to pump as much green energy into the grid as it takes in. The environment isn't the only thing pushing Google away from conventional energy sources. The company notes prices for renewable energy have plummeted over the past 6 years. Plenty of other tech companies have also pledged to achieve 100% reliance on green energy. Even some small towns rely almost entirely on renewable energy.
There's a saying in the markets that the year of monkey brings turmoil. But in Japan, monkey years brought more than a roller coaster market, large earthquakes, and major incidents with US military, and then widespread of bird flu, a deja vu from 12 years ago. In recent weeks, a highly pathogenic avian flu was discovered in several prefectures in eastern Japan. Authority in Niigata Prefecture said they have completed culling of over 550,000 chickens after an outbreak of bird flu is suspected in a coastal area. While in northern Aomori Prefecture, over 23,000 ducks were culled after ducks tested positive for the H5N6 bird flu strain. Authorities said they have contained the areas and designated 10-kilometer radius from the farms as a high-risk area and banned farms from transporting their birds and eggs out of the areas.
If we include the suspected ones under examination, we have discovered about 30 cases of avian flu and possible avian flu. We only had 3 cases which involved poultry farms, chickens, and ducks.
Under Japanese law, poultry has to be culled and buried within 72 hours from testing positive to highly pathogenic avian flu. Authorities are trying to determine the areas of potential danger, but experts say it is hard as birds are migrating all over the country.
The winter birds come into the country from various routes. They are migrating from Russia, from the Korean Peninsula, and some fly direct over the Sea of Japan. It is better to assume that the virus may have been brought in throughout Japan.
Local and central governments are inspecting parks and farms, areas where migrating birds may fly in, issued a warning to refrain from touching any birds. Authorities are also trying to prevent from harmful or unfounded rumors from spreading. There is very little chance of humans being infected from this avian flu. And also it is safe to eat chickens, well-cooked chickens that are out in the market right now.
And the mysterious U.S. Air Force base known as Area 51 seems to have gotten bigger over the years. That's according to reporting of the British newspaper The Sun, which posted satellite images. It looks like workers have added a second runway and some new buildings. Area 51 is where the aliens will land soon.
Pakistani officials say a passenger plane has crashed in Pakistan. Pakistani International Airlines says the aircraft was carrying 40 passengers.
I always remind myself that as Commander-in-Chief, I must protect our people, but I also swore an oath to defend our Constitution. And over these last 8 years, we've demonstrated that staying true to our traditions as a nation of laws advances our security as well as our values.
General Mattis is the living embodiment of the Marine Corps motto, Semper Fidelis, always faithful. And the American people are fortunate that a man of this character and integrity will now be the civilian leader atop the Department of Defense.
Thank you, President-elect, for the confidence that you have shown in me. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm grateful for the opportunity to return to our troops, their families, the civilians of the Department of Defense, because I know how committed they are and devoted they are to the defense of our country, the defense of our Constitution. And with our allies strengthened, with our country strengthened, I look forward to being the civilian leader so long as the Congress gives me the waiver and the Senate votes to consent. Thank you very much.
U.S. military veterans came in their thousands to protest the Dakota Access Pipeline, and they're out in force in harsh conditions. The weather probably kept this confrontation from escalating, as police across the bridge had retreated to shelter themselves.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
We want to have it for a permanent record, what people are thinking.
I see.
Well, yesterday afternoon, about 20 minutes to 2, right here over this, in front of the Gaiety Theater, we got the word over the radio that Japan took a shot at Hawaii. Well, myself, I was fit to be tied. If I was young, I'd be in an airplane tonight making for that destination.
I'll be called into the draft pretty soon. I'm eligible. I'm in a 1A classification, and it hit me pretty bad.
What were the fellas saying out there at camp generally?
Well, now we can learn to shoot. Now we can use it, that's all. We're all anxious to get going.
What do you think about it, Miss Jurassic? You've got a boy that's going, aren't you?
Yeah, they've been attacked, so they've got to fight.
Even if it costs you a son, you're willing to see him go ahead?
Yeah. Well, the country wouldn't be any good if you let them have it.
Takes a whole lot of nerve to say that, especially when you ain't just hypothesizing.
Well, I've been considering very seriously enlisting in one or another of the armed forces.
What do you think of the Japs, the Japanese people?
Well,
You hate them.
No, I don't hate them. There must be a good many people in Japan who don't believe and don't support this war.
Do you think they are racially treacherous?
Well, no.
There's no place for compromise. Frankly, my view is, and I include the Hun, or the German so-called, in what I have to say about the Japanese. That is, we ought to exterminate both of them. There's no place for either of those races in the world today.
Pin up all the Japanese in this country so they can't do us any dirt. Not just through the duration of the war, but all of them we get, we just pin them up and keep them. Keep them ever giving anybody else any trouble.
Deadly and devastating airstrikes in Syria's Idlib province. The video of the aftermath was released by the White Helmet Rescue Volunteers. Human rights groups say at least 73 people were killed over the weekend in 3 different locations. Russian planes are suspected to have carried out the attacks in the rebel-held area. Moscow began a major military offensive in support of President Bashar al-Assad last year.
We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite.
And in time of domestic crisis, men of goodwill and generosity should be able to unite regardless of party or politics.